Glad to have you back now. Nigeria's total public debt will hit 38 trillion naira by December 2021, with planned borrowing of 6.17 trillion naira in 2021, higher than the expected budget deficit for 2021. This is according to the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, in her presentation to the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt. She noted that the total public debt stock, external and local borrowings of the federal and state government and the Federal Capital Territory stood at $85.9 billion, equivalent of 31.01 trillion naira as of June 2020. And it is projected, based on existing approval, to rise to 38 trillion naira by December 2021. So let's make sense of this, as Mr. Oladende Area is a government policies, public and social affairs analyst. He joins us now. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for taking our time out of your busy schedule, being with us on the show this morning.
Good morning. Yeah. It's about Nigeria. It's about us.
Interesting. Yeah. I love the fact that you're so passionate and patriotic. I
have no other country to call my own. Now, and I don't carry a second passport.
Interesting. So let's look at these increase in government's expenditure. The minister said the debt stock for Nigeria may likely rise, not likely, but quoting her now, he said we rise to 38 trillion naira by December, by the time some of the borrowings or planned borrowings of the government are approved. Right. That it's what the figure will amount to. What do you make of this? Because a lot of people have raised concern that this is too much, but the government has defended, has been saying this is sustainable.
They not only said sustainable, they also said reasonable borrowing. Now, why do you have to go into qualifying or embellishing borrowing if it makes sense? The point here is this. Number one, oil, our major income source, is gradually losing track in the global markets. And so much energy is being put into other sources of energy, right? Whereby the global reliance on oil will be massively whittled down. So you'll have expected a country with a forward-minded leaders to have been thinking ahead. Now, I'm not stopping at this government now. I'm talking of government since as far as
return of democracy.
They've been shouting that we should diversify agriculture this, agriculture that. But it's been more of talking tall and walking short. We've not really walked the talk. And that's where we are. Then the position of opaque reports that we've been subjected to. When you say you are borrowing, like in normal individual or business situations, a few things must be present. Number one, you must be borrowing for a project that has the capacity to repay the principal, the interest, and every associated cost that has to do with that loan. Number two, the borrowing must deliver value to the people, and to the government. And of course, there must be social capital too, social capital gains and benefits, perhaps through creating of employment. And then when you go into goods production of that services, you expand, the brackets, whereby distributors also come in. There's a value chain along the loan line. But in this case, at a time when we're already burdened with loans, government went into borrowing for infrastructure. As much as we will say that, yes, we need the roads, we need the rail system and everything, the question is, was the evaluation done before the loan being taken positioned the projects as being capable of paying off the loans? Now, I saw a report recently that showed a defalcation, massive defalcation now, between the income they are getting from the railway as against the amount of money that was thrown into it. If you do that as a business, as a person, you will go bankrupt. And another thing that gets me angry, when people they start beginning to compare GDP with earning capacity and all of that, the question is, at all times, and I support where the Bible says, when you go a borrowing, you go a sorrowing. You borrow because you are financially handicapped and disabled. So your borrowing should move you from being handicapped to being able.
Generating
exactly
revenue.
And that's why that's why I find all of these uncomfortable.
We'll get to that in a moment. You talk about oil. The prices, as of today, the price of oil has gone up to like $85.
We were here when it was 120, 130, 140.
Yeah.
So what up has it gone?
The government perhaps is banking on that now that the price of oil has gone up. Maybe that should result in a sizable amount of revenue for the government. You remember that the government is also have also initiated the taxes there and all of that. Do you think that is sustainable in the long run?
Definitely, without going into rocket science, it is not sustainable, and I'll tell you why. We are an import-dependent nation. We spend a lot of foreign exchange, right, on importing all manner of goods and, of course, services. In this situation now, the one that carries the brunt now is our naira. Look at it from that perspective, because we have very little dollar income being changed by massive naira notes. Within a space of 3-4 weeks, naira came down to as high as $5.80 to $1. Nobody does that and expects a miracle to happen. Prayers will not heal the economy. Constructive thinking, okay, and dynamic reconciliation with the realities on ground without painting colors is the way to go. You cannot be borrowing at the pace that we are borrowing and for what we are borrowing and expect a miracle to happen. Now, what new height can we attain with the dollar? I mean, with the oil?
The price of oil.
With the rise in the price of oil, what new height? Don't forget that it's not determined by us. Okay? We are just a passenger in the corridor of the oil business and politics. Okay? Dictated by not forces of demand and supply now, by some global powers who, for their own selfish and enlightened interests, okay, allow things to move either way. When they want to, they know how they bring it down, okay? And for me, you can now sit in your home and be comfortable to work with situations that you do not have control over. And that is my worry.
The government pegged the benchmark for oil at $57 in the 2022 budget, and of course 1.8 million barrels of oil, crude oil per day. I mean, put all of that together, perhaps I think that's what they are banking at. If you put all of that together, and of course the revenue target, which is around 17 million from a federal government enterprise owned enterprises, perhaps if you put that together and you compare that with the deficit, that gap should close a little bit. Give us your risk analysis of all of this.
You see, the deficit is such that it's growing. And then when you look at the presidential reports on the economy, the doing salami, the chairman stated that we're spending 97.7% of our national income to service debts. Those are not indications of enhanced income. And they are also not indications of a healing or growing economy. They show a sick or diseased economy. And for me, we are still very far from the path of recovery. So it's more of a high-risk end for all of us. And it's reflective on the street with the cost of little things like pure water, groundnut, and barley. Before, with 100 naira, you could get barley and groundnut to keep you rolling, right? But now, you need 1,000 naira to buy this little thing. Pure water was 5 naira, now it's 20 naira. Let me not go into high-value commodities, which may make it a lot more dangerous than it should be. So, for me, especially when the budget now is unrealistic, why? The borrowing, the loan content overshadows whatever income that we are projecting to come. And to that extent, at the end of the day, we won't be any better than we were before we took off.
Let's look at other areas and alternative the government can generate funds. You talked about how we should begin to look other areas or other aspects to generate this fund so as to minimize the deficit and, of course, debt to revenue service and all of that. How do you think we can begin, and what areas or aspects do you think the government should begin to look to?
I happen to be a member of the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria. At a time, so much funding was supposedly now made available for rice farmers. But what happened? Corruption set in. Almost 3/4, let's say the half of that money didn't get to the actual farmers who are right on ground, tilling the soil. Some money got lost along the way. And you know, it's not enough to budget. When you make a budget and you cannot cash back your budget, i.e. you want to buy a given asset for 10 billion naira, hoping that it will deliver 20 billion naira. But at the end of the day, all you could release was 5 billion. There's a problem. You may not be able to acquire the assets of the right capacity and performance, or the money will be squandered, and that income will not be available to be realized. Number two, we have a lot of underground natural resources which are not exploited the way it should be. We just discovered very recently now that Zamfara has a lot of gold, and the mining had been ongoing and undertaken by individuals without recourse to the federal government, which is a crime for me. And then in Ibadan, Ilesha, and other places, you have all manner of people mining gold. In Ifewara, same thing. Okay, then we have bitumen, large, according to the reports, right? They said we have the largest depot somewhere in Ondo State, the largest in the world. Had it been federal government easily works with the state government, they can begin to exploit this and then export to be earned for it.
But if you look at this process of exploring these minerals, or that may take a long while.
No,
given the fact that
the technology is out there in the market. The same way you can have a mini refinery configured within 90 days. Some of these things are there. It's like looking for stone crushers for a stone mining quarry. It doesn't take an arm and a leg.
You don't think it's a long-term project?
No, it's not. I can give you addresses and phone numbers of global enterprises that you will just call, and then we're talking about capacity now. How much of, I told them, are you coming in? Are you coming as a small scale, medium, or large scale? Right? But I don't know why we seem not to be seeing that. And the problem here is the people at the helm of powers, they travel out. They have access to global information. Why are they not putting them to use? And that is still unanswered. Now, look at the train built from Kano to Maradi. Ask yourself, how much of business do we do with Nigeria Republic beyond ferrying cows here and the skins? They are more into tanning. Okay? Whereas if we had built train from Lagos to Benin Republic, it would have been a different place entirely. We do a lot more business here in the West Coast here than end. You see, so when you mix ethnicity, tribalism, and clannishness into economic policies, that is the trash you get.
There are those who do not believe that the government doesn't have the capacity to make money, or they don't even believe that government is short of funds at the moment, but they believe that perhaps the government will have to tighten up some of the leakages within its own ministry. Do you believe that the government has the fund, but it's just that it is loopholes and leakages, siphoning these funds within its own ministry?
That's a beautiful one coming from you. Over the years, we have reviewed government expenditure vis-a-vis the cost of administration or governance. And it became obvious, not only leakages, there are deliberate mechanisms built into our budgeting system, whereby year in, year out, so much goes into sustaining government, and the value is not translated. What am I trying to say? If I pay for a service, I should derive value. Nigerians are not getting value for what government is spending. Why? corruption is inherent in it. This is the only country in the world where government buys stuff like laptops, photocopiers, annually. Go and check it out. Annually. These are not consumables that you just use and throw away. No. My laptop is about 10 years old now. I simply integrated that, changed some apps and, and it's still serving me very well. And if you use accounting principles, it should last for 4 years minimum. But some people are benefiting from that racketeering. Now, there have been a lot of appointments, SAs, PAs, that are not really adding value when you come down to the brass tacks. But they are being carried on in the name of job for the boys. Why? They were there for them as campaign legworks during elections, and then they must be taken care of. But the question is, at what cost? And in lieu of what? Okay? Because we're talking about opportunity cost now. Okay? If any money is meant for Project A or should have been used to deliver particular value to the community and it's now spent on emoluments, it's a loss.
Let's look at the impact of this borrowings. For instance, Buhari's asking for about $4.17 billion. That's a fresh in the Finance Act in 2021. Yeah. And should that be approved, that means it will go to 38 trillion.
No,
like
don't bother.
But the question I would like to ask, the question I would like to ask, you're saying it to be approved.
Yeah, because have you had this National Assembly query loan request from Mr. President? Even when we citizens can see the opaqueness and the cloud, the clouded nature of the loan request. Let me tell you, each time they talk about taking new loans, they say infrastructure. Why don't we have distinct and open details of what and what concerns infrastructure? And 2 projects, now 3 projects, have remained the poster boys. Lagos by the Expressway will be mentioned. Second Niger Bridge, will be mentioned, and of course they will say railway.
Let's
railway from where to where. The specifics should be made available. That is when we can say, oh, we now know why they are taking this money. Okay, we can go with them.
Although the government really, this government particularly, has been appraised very much by a lot of people that he's done very well in terms of infrastructure. They've given him credit. They've given President Buhari credit that they've done very well in terms of infrastructure and their initiative in agriculture.
You don't think instead of expending so much money on rails, for instance, if we had built a refinery, maybe 1 or 2, and then expand the petrochemical industry, wouldn't we have created more jobs, right? And then by producing Jet A1, that's aviation fuel now, kerosene, diesel and petrol, we would have been exporting and earning more money instead of sending our oil unprocessed.
Let's wrap up by you give us your view, whether you think the government, because the government perhaps, or what they are saying is that they are capable of paying this back as soon as possible. But what is your impression about government's ability to pay back these loans?
This government is over 6 years old. They have less than 2 years to go. If they could ramp up so much loan within 6 years, tell me what miracle policy or strategy they've just discovered that they will now deploy, and then we give them the edge to be able to wipe off the debt before they left. You see, remember that Obasanjo met debts and he wiped off the debts. Some didn't understand how it was possible, but gradually we got to where we are. In my over 60 years of existence, no government in Nigeria has borrowed as much as this government. Unfortunately, I cannot see that income generation, coming out from deploying of the loans that we ably pay the loan, pay the interest, and of course, other associated costs. We've been borrowing. Don't forget that some of these borrowings also go into paying salaries. So when you borrow for consumption, how do you now expect that to deliver value that will wipe off the loan? These are basic economic theories. You don't need a PhD to understand them.
Well, I hope the government is listening to, policy analysts like you. On this note, I want to thank you so much for your time. Olade Ndiaroyo is government policy,
It's my
public
pleasure.
and social affairs.
I'll be here
Thank you so
any
much
day.
for your time.
Any day, I'll be here. It's nice having you again.
Yeah. You're also watching Business Breakfast. Still to come on the program, Nigeria's fintech-enabled investment in dollar-denominated assets rise sharply from 223 billion naira in 2016 to 1.4 trillion in 2020. We'll look at the market and the opportunities in the Nigeria fintech space in a moment. Please stay with us.